Are you ready for a fifth line day? We're in gate 62, the gate of detail, and this is the line 5 called Metamorphosis. There are 2 lines that are called Metamorphosis within the 384. One is the 12-6 and here in the 62-5. And it's always an indication of a highly mutative gate. That is a gate that is always open to radical change. So this is the great line of Metamorphosis. It's a line that comes up with wonderful theories and understandings, and it's always projected on these people that they are the people who have the detail. And that's great if you're 40 years old and you've collected some data through your life. But when you're 5 or 6, it's not so easy when everybody is projecting on you that you're the one with the detail. There's a lifetime learning here. When excellence is achieved, action is necessary. When detail has been achieved, when all the detail has been done, well, then these are the people who are going to attract the energy. The fifth line is the line of universalization, and all fifth lines operate in an emotional wave of seduction. They are the seducers or the seduced. Everybody comes at this fifth line with the projection of, we know you have the detail. You tell us what it's all about. Maybe they have it, maybe they don't. Excellence in this context is really the completion of the detail work. It's the rule of teaching, that you have to know 10 times more than your students know, because otherwise you have no right to teach them. Your detail has to be complete. Even if you don't give them all the detail, you're not overwhelming them with all of the facts and all that stuff, but you've got it yourself. It gives you a kind of an authority. This is the only one of the lines in gate 62 that has an introduction line. So this is something that needs to be learned through experience. The nature of logic dictates that we must always continue our process of checking the detail over and over again. But cycles of knowledge and cycles of learning, they come to a close. And it's when you have that detail, that's when you can give and you can relate understanding reasonably to others. The exaltation says, reaching out to others to share, symbolized by the moon's phases, as it moves from darkness to eventually sharing its light. The understanding that only when the details are complete can action or expression be initiated. So fifth lines, they need to understand that it's okay for them not to commit themselves to the projections of others, not until they're ready. When they learn to wait, then they have power. They become even more attractive. And that works for them, and they learn to wait. If they do not learn to wait, they get seduced by everybody else's projection. They end up in situations where they become less and less comfortable with what detail can be for them. And then you come to the other side of this, So the fifth line is always going to be projected on. And so this is the child who goes into the classroom and they know that the teacher is going to ask them. Happens all the time for them. They just know it. And they do not want to be asked. They may not be ready. Because they know the teacher's always going to ask them and project on them that they have got the detail. If they don't do their homework, if they don't study, then they get caught out and they feel embarrassed because they know that they're being projected on. And there's that thing with reputation, of course, with the fifth line. To be projected on is always an opportunity to fulfill the projection, but it also means that there is always the threat of humiliation and the loss of that reputation. So in the detriment, we have a tendency in metamorphosis to seek acclaim through dramatic presentation. When the details are organized, the need for attention demands expression. Some years back, there was a whole thing with a fusion machine that was going to give us all this fusion energy. The scientists had it all figured out how they were going to do cold fusion, and there was this classic 62 line 5 announcement out of nowhere. Suddenly they announced that cold fusion was the future. It works and it's going to be wonderful and it's going to solve all our problems. And of course that turned out to be nonsense. It's so important really to realize that whenever logic is expressed, it has to be experimented with before it's ever going to be accepted. That's the great truth of logic. It's meaningless until you've worked through it and experimented with it and can get it to a point where you can recognize its inherent truth. Human design is a very logical system. Ra always said, don't believe me, do not believe me, do your own experiment. Ask questions, find out for yourself. By going through the experimentation, you will find the logic and you will find the illogic. You know, if it is there, you will find out what doesn't work. Logic is not there to accept things at face value. You know, question everything. I remember seeing there was a bit of graffiti on a wall once, and it said, question everything in huge letters, question everything. And then in small letters just underneath it, it said, why? The 62nd gate, it names things. It details things. And so there is something in there that automatically wants to be recognized. Recognition brings a certain amount of acceptance. Ra had the 62. You know, look at all those amazing words that he's put into our language. Personality crystal, design crystal, left angle cross, right angle cross, juxtaposition cross, all of this naming of things that comes out of the detailing. There's a natural need for recognition because otherwise the name cannot be accepted by the collective. When you know what something is called, you can talk about it and it becomes part of the collective language. There's also something to remember about naming things. I think it was Eckhart Tolle, it might have been Adyashanti, but it was one of those sort of those teachers. And they said that when you name something, you kill it. Because when you name something, you begin to take it for granted. You don't see it anymore. You lose the wonder of it all. I remember so many occasions, I sit in the garden with my mum and a bird would come down and I said, oh, look at that bird, isn't that beautiful? It's just a sparrow. It's like, didn't see it anymore because it was just a sparrow. She'd named it, she knew what it was, not interested anymore. So we lose the wonder sometimes when we name something. The grounding in the 61.5 is called influence. For change to reach the collective, some influence is useful. If you're working away, gathering your detail and testing your theories out, and you get to the point where your logical details really do make sense and the pattern works and the process is complete, then you're ready to express that and make a difference with it. So to have some influence to ground you when you're called out for that in a time of crisis as a fifth line, well, that would be really helpful, I would imagine. So the moon is still in gate 43 in the Ajna, and then it moves into gate 14 at 1556. This is the sacral gate of possession in great measure, the gate of power skills. And this is the accumulation and retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. It's a deeply material gate, and it supplies the entire energy for the material way. I've mentioned before that the image in the I Ching is of a cart that is overflowing with material possessions. It's a visual representation of accumulation and therefore of power, because the more you had, of course, you must be wealthy. And if you were wealthy, you had power. And this leads into gate 34. The power of the great, the gate of power at 238, of course, another sacral gate. Power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. This is a gate of empowerment, a potent source of vital, pure energy emerging through response. Anything to do with the sacral is going to be a generator gate. So it's through response, empowering individuation and the expression of uniqueness. That's our gate for today. That's our line for today. So we're back tomorrow with the 6th line, the top of the hexagram. Yeah, so until then, I'm looking for my off button. Oh, I know. Oh, it's not easy being me sometimes, you know. Go gently. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.